The way that I make videos is to have a thought come to mind, and when I can't get that thought out of my mind, I'll make a video about it. So over the past few weeks, I've been getting a lot of thoughts out, making a lot of videos, and I actually have a backlog of videos. But I actually want to sort of stop that in its tracks and inject a fresh video that has information, or not information, but news hot off the press. And it's on the topic of vaccinations, and more specifically, forced vaccinations. Now, when I say forced, perhaps that's a bit harsh. I would consider it forced, but just to be a little bit more diplomatic, I'll say mandated vaccinations. There are articles as recent as today where it talks about big companies, the big tech companies here in San Francisco, going back to the office. And one of the big discussions is about the vaccinations because we can go back to the office, but are people going to be afraid? More than that, is it just unhealthy if we don't be mindful of the vaccination situation? So there's actually talks that the companies are going to mandate vaccinations. Potentially. I don't know if it's potentially or if it's actually official, but it's certainly on the discussion block. That's an interesting concept. Immediately, my mind goes to a place of, as a nation, have we ever mandated some kind of medical procedure in order to work somewhere? And if you have information on that, maybe you can let me know. To my knowledge, we don't. We don't mandate that. I mean, I think about like when we're younger, we get like hepatitis shots or something. But is that, and if we don't have the shots, does our employer have a right to know that? That would change a lot if that's the case. But I'm going to roll with the thought that that is not the case. And if it's true that we've never forced a medical procedure, would this be the first time? Now, forced, is that looking at it too harshly? Is it really like nobody's forcing you? Nobody's got a gun to your head. Nobody is. The government's not going to be beating down your door, forcing you to get vaccinated. No, I suppose that's not happening. But then it gets into a topic of what's your definition of forced. If all my supply lines are getting cut off because I don't have a vaccination, if I can't get a job, if I can't go to the grocery store, well, in my channel, I like to break things down to the conceptual level. I'm trying to think if there's a concept to be had with this that is, or a paradox to understand in this that we can look at. And I'd say there's two aspects of that which I feel are worth digging into. One is, and I'm going to write these down. One is what it means to be an American, and I'll explain that more. And then the other is, in terms of a conceptual level, what is really being argued. So let me start with that. Actually, what is really being argued? One of the things I really try to point out in my channel is that the concepts are not really the argument. It's the evidence that's the argument, which is why I'm so hesitant to bring forth the evidence. Let me ask this. Do the vaccines actually work? If anybody says that one side has the evidence and the other side doesn't, you lost me. You lost me. To the best of my knowledge, both sides have evidence. Both sides have reasons. Both sides have arguments. Both sides have a defensible position. And then should I take the side that has the consensus? Perhaps because way more people go in this direction, that's the way I'll go. And okay, maybe potentially safety in numbers, but that doesn't make it true. So does a vaccine actually work? We argue the evidence, we don't argue the concept. The concept would be that if we have this virus or a disease in our body, it would make then we should take measures to vaccinate ourselves. I don't think I've come across an argument where somebody is saying we shouldn't vaccinate ourselves if this is what's going on. What's the argument, at least from what I'm hearing, is that really what's going on? Is the virus really that bad? Are these vaccines really that good? Is there not more to the story going on? Are we not being bamboozled into some conspiracy theory situation? To me, that's where the arguments are. So, what's really being argued? I don't really think the conceptual level. Maybe the conceptual level if we decide, to what extent is the virus bad enough that we need to take drastic measures on. That might be a concept. If it's this bad, then we should take measures. Well, maybe that can be argued. If there's only thousands of people dying, then we don't take measures. If there's millions, then we take measures. Maybe that could be argued. Maybe that's what's being argued. But with the vaccine, I don't know. Let's go to the other aspect I want to talk about, which is what it means to be an American. And the reason why I bring this up is because there seems to be a conflict here that some would argue is anti-American, anti-freedom. We're land of the free, and we're home of the brave. If you force me to get vaccinated, you are taking away my freedom, especially when there's controversy on this vaccination. If you force me, you take away my freedom. But here is where potentially a paradox. So my last example was about examining from a conceptual level, but here I want to see if we can examine from a paradoxical level, because to be an American is to be in the land of the free, but also to be American is to be for the people, by the people. Am I wrong? Why would I bring that up in this topic? Well, because I see this as competing forces. Are we land of the free, or are we for the people, by the people? Do you see where I'm getting at with this? If we're land of the free, that means if the majority of people don't want something, but it's going to affect my freedom, then the freedom should win out. Well, if the freedom wins out, then we're not for the people, by the people. Right? If the people vote something out, if the people vote an aspect of freedom out, now we have a paradoxical conflict. Because if both of those represent what it means to be an American, only one of those is going to win out. So is it anti-American to force me to wear a mask? Here's the problem with the paradox, because it always just depends on how we look at it. Whatever our narrative is, we are right or wrong, just depending on our narrative. It's not depending on an objective factor. It's not even dependent on evidence or facts. It's just however I'm feeling today, or however I'm feeling in life, whatever has led me up to this point, I'm right because I could just take the right position. I'm right. It means it is American to force you to wear a mask because we're for the people, by the people. And the majority of the people want this to happen. Okay, and it's American not to force it, because no matter if it's the majority of the people who want it, because we're about freedom. No matter what, we're right, and no matter what, we're wrong. That's the challenge. That's the difficulty with the paradox. We're always right and we're always wrong at the same time, which in itself is a paradox. How can you be right and wrong at the same time? That's why it's a paradox. So I think this topic, truth be told, does hover along the realm of paradox. If we are truly about freedom, and if it is a violation of my freedom to be forced to get vaccinated, that is one aspect of that the society can go. And of course, the other aspect. But of course, there's arguments that this isn't a violation of freedom or whatever the stepping stones we might build in order to make our case. I certainly would encourage us to always be open to what the opposing argument might be, even if it sounds ridiculous. Just let people argue and not just be heard, but be understood. I'm always a fan of that. But is this a violation of freedom? I want to know what you guys think. Does this violate our freedom? And I guess after explaining what it means to be American, I should ask the next question. Is it anti-American? And that's where I expect nobody would be able to say yes or no. So that's my question. My questions to you. Is it a violation of freedom to force us to get vaccinated? And then two is that anti-American? Is that anti-American to honor? Is it anti-American to honor for the people by the people? Gotta love paradoxes. Forces such strong accountability in our thinking. Okay, I'll leave it at that, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.